What took so long for the Transalp to return to the US? And is it too late? So the original Transalp was brought to the United States from 1989 to 1990. We only got it for 2 years. Back then, a lot of people were buying sport bikes. Adventure bikes weren't really a thing yet, and the bike wasn't successful. But now, the middleweight adventure bike is really exploding. So the all-new Honda Transalp has their new 755cc parallel twin with a 270-degree crank. This has been a really nice engine in this motorcycle. Good usable bottom end, a really strong mid-range, and then it revs up really nicely all the way to its red line. And it's just been a really nice motor off-road, on the pavement, good amount of throttle down low, and it hooks up and has a lot of traction. And then once you get into that mid-range, you can really put the power down, slide a corner, get out of the hole on the pavement, and it's a really nice, well-rounded motorcycle. The suspension, it has a Showa 43mm fork and a ProLink Showa shock in the back, 7.9 up front, right around 7.5 in the rear. Preload adjustment on the front and rear. There's no other adjustments on this suspension. It's not super aggressive, so if you go really fast off-road, you're gonna blow through the stroke and it's gonna be a little bit harsh. But when you ride it within its limits, it's been, a really comfortable ride. The Honda Transalp has a really nice electronic sweep, especially for a bike that costs $9,999. You have the option of 4 preset ride modes: standard, sport, gravel, and rain. And then you have a fully customizable user mode where you can dial in the power, traction control, engine braking, and ABS intervention. I spent a lot of my time on this ride in user mode, full power, no traction control, ABS disabled on the rear, and then just the first setting of engine braking. And that gave me the ability to slide the bike, do wheelies, and really kind of make it my own. I did experiment with the other modes. Gravel mode, off-road, just the traction control kicked on a little bit too much for me. But I know some of the other riders who have a little less off-road experience really appreciated that sort of safety net. You can get on the gas, it's not gonna step out too much for you, and you can feel it kind of cut in and let the tire hook back up before you get moving down the road. The bike also comes standard with an up and down auto quick shifter, and this thing was slick. Banging up shifts, going down shifts, it's really nice. It's not notchy, smooth. It really makes it a nice addition, especially as a standard feature for $10,000, and it's something that I think everyone will appreciate. The Honda Transalp comes with a 21-inch front wheel and an 18-inch rear wheel, true off-road riding sizes. So not only will that give you a great options for tires, but also when you're doing real off-road riding, you have those familiar settings that you would on a dual sport or a dirt bike, so you can roll over rocks and logs pretty nicely. The ground clearance is right around 8 inches, so there's not a whole lot of ground clearance, but again, this is a more sort of 50-50 adventure bike with a really good touring aspect. It's something that I think a lot of riders will appreciate. The brake system on the Honda Transalp features dual 310mm disc with 2 dual piston calipers up front, and then the rear, it's a single piston caliper with a 256mm disc. The brakes are really nice, responsive, progressive. They don't have a super aggressive initial bite, but I think that's a good thing, especially when you're riding off-road. There was never a point where I felt like, the brakes weren't gonna slow me down in time. It does have off-road ABS. You can't disable the ABS completely on the front, but when you go into user mode or gravel mode, it'll switch to the off-road ABS system. So you can disable the rear ABS to do skids and stuff like that. The front will always stay on. There was a couple times in some wet, slippery rock sections where just dragging the front, I could feel a little bit of that sort of pressure, the lever coming back out. But for the most part, it was a really unintrusive system, which is really nice for riding aggressively off-road. So what took so long for the Honda Transalp to return to the US? And is it too late? Well, the Honda Transalp was unsuccessful because people weren't buying it in the US. It had a lot longer of a run in Europe. And is it too late? I say absolutely not. This is a great adventure bike, especially at the price point. I think a lot of people will appreciate the electronic sweep, the comfortable suspension, and the very fun, exciting, yet approachable engine. We're gonna have to put in a comparison test, especially against the new Suzuki, and find out which Cycle World feels is better. But overall, a lot of people are really gonna like this Honda Transalp.